seated, please. Most welcome. Assalamu alaikum. Would you kindly introduce our guests formally?
Yes. Today we have got two guests with us.
Mm-hmm.
With your permission, may I request them to introduce themselves in detail?
Yes, not at much detail, just a little introduction,
Yes.
to make us familiar with each other, right?
My name is Barry Clive. I come through the Newham community because I have a factory there for the last 5 years. But before that, and even now, I have a publishing company that publishes religious books.
Good,
So
excellent. That's
I'm
another.
interested.
Yes, I know. The link between you and us, sort of, I mean.
Yes.
Because we are a religious community, we also have a press which is devoted to publication of religious books. Did you know it before?
I have looked at it. Yes.
Right. Have you been to Islamabad to visit our...
No.
That's not yet, yes.
No.
Right.
I'd like to.
Anyway, you're most welcome. And you don't belong to the area of Newham, do you?
No, because I only work there. I don't.
Yes, that's
live
right,
there.
because you
Yes.
speak typical Southern English, you know. As they call it, the King's English.
Right.
Mashallah. And you, please?
My name is Gregory Coughlin, also from Newham, where I was born, but I have lived for many years overseas, particularly Southeast Asia, in Thailand, Indonesia.
Right, yes.
Also, I was in Bangladesh after the unfortunate war there in
Are
'71.
you a diplomat or?
No, just purely an entrepreneurial businessman.
Right,
really.
right.
But I was interested to come along to your meeting because religion particularly interests me in terms of I consider that people should learn tolerance and how to get along together.
Excellent.
Regardless of their beliefs.
Excellent.
And this is what I wanted to hear a little bit more
I'm
about.
so glad. You're
So,
most welcome, both of you. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
And you, please? Huh?
Allah from Newham.
What do you do there? What is your profession?
Well, I am a managing director of a company, which is
A company?
It's a company, yes.
What sort of company would be?
Which
Or
is
is
a
it
consumer electronic company. So we distribute all the big companies like Argus, Index, Littlewood.
Right.
We supply them.
Okay. So shall we start straight away with the questions if they have any to address?
Yes, I was very interested to hear from my friend that the community is very tolerant of other religions, and to the extent that I understood that even Krishna was considered perhaps a prophet of your
Right.
beliefs. And I brought along a book that is of the life of Krishna that we
That's right.
published. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
was
Okay.
particularly
Thank you.
interesting
Yes.
to me.
Okay.
But also I heard that Confucius was also considered a prophet.
Exactly.
They're the only two that are enumerated for the religion other than...
I'll answer you. First of all, let me remove a slight misunderstanding regarding the reason why we respect Krishna and all other religious leaders and consider them to be true founders of religion. It's not just out of courtesy. It's not just out of broad-mindedness. So that there is a connotation of that compliment to us.
Yes.
That you seem to be more tolerant than others. It's not so at all. It is because according to our fundamental belief, every religion must be tolerant to that extent. Or it is not from God. Because we can't believe in a limited idea of God who belongs here but does not belong there. Who only is concerned with the welfare of the Middle Eastern people, for instance, and does not care what may happen in India or China or elsewhere in the world. So the idea of the universal God requires that we must believe in the manifestation of His kindness and attention to all His creation, in every part of the world and in every age. So this belief is a fundamental belief we have received from the Holy Quran. So if the Muslims have drifted away from it, it's no fault of Islam. It is their fault. So we can relate to those verses, we can trace back all the verses which severally as well as collectively discuss this aspect and are very clear in this message. That the unity of God and universality of God require that He must have sent prophets everywhere in the world, in all ages. He didn't abandon any people at any time. Hence, you must subscribe to the truth of all the prophets of the world, not just Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this respect, Islam has a distinct feature, not shared by other religions. Nowhere else it is required by the followers of religion to subscribe to the truth of all the various religious scholars, religious leaders and founders, and to believe that they were divinely appointed as such. So why Islam? This is the second question. If it is from the same God, why did not God reveal this truth, which is universal in itself, to all the religions? So a question answered raises another question unanswered.
Well, how do you define a prophet, and how do you recognize
that? That will be the second.
I'm a bit premature to ask that
That
now.
will be the second question.
I see.
Yes. Let me deal with the second part of the same question, which my answer has given birth to another question, so I must deal with that first. According to Islam, previous religions, previous to Islam, were local in the sense that they were addressed to tribes and a people which were not connected with the rest of the humanity in the world. And civilization had not yet grown enough to weave the human community into one single entity. And the time had not advanced enough scientifically as to make it possible for a teaching to be commonly applicable to all the men alike. So neither it was time for a universal teaching, nor was it possible for such a teaching to be delivered to a people who belong to a certain age with their specific requirements of that age. As such, unless the final universal religion was revealed, it was not possible for this teaching to be included in every religion and form. Enough it was for the people of medieval or Middle Eastern countries, for instance, to admit the truth of all the prophets of that line in which they were born. So that is how religions were treated categorically and with specific relations to the countries and the environment as prevailed in the previous ages in those countries, and the special historical facts of that country were also taken into account. So that is the answer why a universal teaching was not revealed earlier. But it is not sufficient, because if a universal teaching is not introduced earlier, at least there shouldn't be fundamental differences contradicting each other. That is another question born out of this answer again. And here the Holy Quran has already addressed this question. It says that at its pristine purity, all religions are fundamentally alike.
Acceptable.
Yes, I agree.
There is no difference whatsoever.
Yes.
They all laid stress on the unity of God, on the communion with God, through being mindful of one's obligation to the Creator. But that would ultimately lead, and did lead in every case, to a teaching concerning relationship between humans and humans as based on the concept of common origin from the same God. So this is what the Holy Quran has clearly said. it says the differences which were created later on by man. They were not God-made differences. That is why the Holy Quran repeatedly invites our attention to the origin of religions. As they grow, complications begin.
That's right.
New proliferations are added here and there, and new edifices are added to the main structure of the religion. So that is why repeated advent of other prophets in the same religion try to rehabilitate the original truth every time they come. And they pick up a fight with the local people who say, no, you're wrong, this is religion. They said, no, it is not. This is your own wishful thinking or, distorted concept of religion, or ulterior motives are guiding your steps. So you must return to the unity of Moses. Every time they come, this is the fight which is taken up, for instance, in Judaic religions. So this is in short, or maybe in some detail, the answer to your question, please.
Thank you.
And now I would turn to you, please.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I still would like you to define for me prophet.
Yes.
And precisely how you identify.
Yes, right.
a
Without
prophet.
saying it in so many words, in fact, I have already defined prophets
Yes.
as understood in Islam or by us with reference to what I have already said. Prophets are not just sane people, sages, holy people who become holy and grow holy by themselves, who have no communion with God on high, and as such their wisdom is a product of the exercise of their faculties, plus also the residual effect of divine teachings which had reached them. So both these factors create sages and great people who take up the role of reformers on their own. They are good people, they are mentioned with respect by the Holy Quran, but they differ from those whom God commissions as His vicegerents. And when he, or somebody I should say, is appointed as a representative of God on earth or in a certain area to a certain people, he is called a prophet. In the Holy Quran there are two terms used for the same office. One is prophet and the other is messenger.
Yes. Yes.
So it is the role of the messenger to deliver a message from God. And in this case, that message does not have to be necessarily a new religious teachings. The message may be to return to the original truth or to reform a society regarding certain sins. So such messengers who do not bring a new teaching or a new book are non-law-bearing prophets. And here the term prophet and messenger becomes one and the same.
I see. Yes.
You see?
Yes.
Prophecy, again, is common to the law-bearing and the non-law-bearing. So as far as the aspect of an office bearer from God or a commissioned officer from God, he has two vantage points. From one vantage point, he looks up to God and receives instruction from God. From the other vantage point, he looks to the humanity and instructs humanity. Now, wherever there is the element of simple instruction regarding reformation of the society, he remains a messenger. As far as the faith in his identity, in his, being a real true representative of God is concerned, that can only be supported by the element of prophecy in what he relates to God. When such a man claims he has received instruction from God, he must show some signs. According to the Holy Quran, the signs which are unnecessarily overemphasized by the people in general are not such signs as have changed the lot of the people. Repeatedly the Holy Quran draws our attention to the fact that look at Moses, 9 times during his confrontation or Pharaoh's confrontation with him, he came out with wonderful great signs. None of them resulted in the belief of any one of his opponents. No sign. Jesus Christ brought so many wonderful signs. Whatever the significance of those signs be, even if taken literally, they failed to create an impact on the society so that he remained a minority throughout his life. What is the purpose of such signs? The Holy Quran emphasizes the role of prophecy instead. When such people promise that if you do not reform yourself, this is what is going to happen to you, or they promise that they have heard from God that whatever you do, you will fail to obstruct my passage and I am going to grow from strength to strength. And similar prophecies, they stand as witness of the truth of such people. And with the passage of time, that proof becomes stronger and grows in size as well. So in this capacity of a man who prophesies regarding the events of future which become fulfilled, some in his lifetime, some after his life, is called a prophet. But the person remains the same.
Yes.
Only the vantage points differ, you know.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, sir.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I was wondering that, going back from what you said before to me and then the question now, as there's now a sort of community of the world, we're much smaller, as you were saying, there's more communication between all the different nations. Is that the reason why Muhammad was the last prophet, as Islam
This is
believes?
one of the reasons mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah.
When an age had dawned where man could be universally considered as a single entity at last, where means of communications would grow to bind man to other people, other men in living in other continents or areas of the world. That would be the age when the last final religion was to be revealed. The proof that it is not just a claim, the proof that this exactly is the significance, a valid significance, is found in the Quran, whereby all those prophecies which relate to the age when man would become one are mentioned in the Holy Quran in such clear terms that it is simply for you to read and know. There is no need of an interpreter to tell you. For instance, the Holy Quran speaks of izan nufusu zuvejat, when live people, living things, would be brought closer to each other. Va'izal wuhushu hushirat, when zoos would be created and animals would be gathered from all over the world, not only humans but animals. Va'izal suhufu nushirat, and when the age of publication would dawn, and you will find all over papers distributed, with printed matters and things and so on. The word printing is not yours, but suhufu means papers carrying instruction or things or writings. They would be widely distributed. There are just some of the examples which I have just to illustrate the point, that a religion which speaks of an age where universal religion should have been revealed to man also speaks of the reasons why the age was ripe to receive such a religion. And they are just, but if you read those chapters of the Quran which deal almost entirely with the prophecy of the events which we have seen fulfilled today in our age, then you will perhaps understand the import better. Yes, please.
I see it rather, I have to be a little bit controversial here, not
Yes,
for the
please do.
sake of
Go
being
ahead.
controversial,
Yes, and,
but where you're espousing and saying that the Holy Quran says
That's
that
right.
all religions will come together, I take a look at the world around us. I see precisely the opposite, that religions are becoming more divisive. And even sects within religions.
But the Holy Quran does not say, this is not what I said. It must be a weakness of my expression.
My intelligence in
which-
absorbing what you're saying.
which misconveyed the message to. I never said that the Holy Quran prophesied that these religions from all over would become one. The Holy Quran speaks of those material signs which by way of development of sciences, etc., will bring man together. And the world comity would become one single world comity. Instead of being divided into so many different entities which could not interrelate with each other anyway properly. So means are mentioned, by which means. For instance, in the oceans it is said, the oceans would be full of ships, boats carrying their messages, and the heaven would be divided into air passages, air routes, which will be used to distribute pamphlets and things and deliver goods from one place to another. Now when you read all these things, the collective image is so powerful that it is impossible even for the greatest skeptic to discredit this as just a haphazard talk or ravings of a person. They all come true without exception. And a man of the age of 1400 years ago simply could not have imagined such an age as is clearly mentioned in the Holy Quran in these terms. About religion, there are other prophecies. About religion, there are prophecies that they will come to fight with each other, will come to grip. A chaos will be created. Great fights would be taken up. But ultimately, in the end, Islam would emerge as victorious, unifying man in religion, as God had earlier unified man in his social context, in his economic behavior and other such things as are non-religious. This is the complete picture.
Yes.
Thank you.
So following on from that, sorry,
No,
so following on just from what you said, that if therefore you've got Muhammad as the last prophet,
Yes.
and then the Messiah was expected,
Yes.
and Ahmed
That's right.
came,
Correct.
is there a repeated Messiah expected to consolidate and to
Yes, I'll come to
reiterate the
that.
teachings?
You see, when we say the last prophet, I have already made it clear that last law-bearing prophet,
Right.
the last prophet with a universal message. And if he is the last prophet, it is also implied that he must also reveal a code of life which is unchangeable from his time on to the end of the time. Otherwise, his claim would be hollow and meaningless. So all these things are also specifically mentioned in the Holy Quran. And the reason why a teaching is conceived to be universal to the extent that it is also timeless is exactly the same. For both, the same answers are there. No teaching, religious teachings, can be considered to be universal in space unless it is related to human psyche. No teaching can be timeless unless it is related to human psyche. So, exactly, this is exactly the conclusion of the Quran. It says, we have revealed a deen-e-fitrah. We created man on the fitrat of God, on the psyche of God, as you may say, on the nature of God. This claim is not only made by the Quran. This claim has been made by the old religions. New Testament particularly says of this. So that is a truth which is universally recognized by all religions. But the question is, the Holy Quran speaks of a religion which is related to this universal psyche. That is why it says that the principles are laid out, and although in some places detailed teaching is also mentioned, but detailed teaching is only mentioned in an area where it is possible for the people from all over the world to practice it. Where it is not possible, the exceptions are also mentioned. The principles are mentioned which would guide us to exceptions, so that even the exceptions are not man-made. They are already provided in the perfect book as we believe it to be. For instance, I'll give the example of the Holy Quran's teachings regarding worship. The worship timings are related to the rise of sun and the setting of sun. Now, this at that time was quite natural, and no human could visualize that in certain part of the same world, certain parts of the same world, the sun does not set every 24 hours or rise every 24 hours. There are periods where the day, including day and night as it's called, one single day, could last as long as a year. Right on the dot of the North Pole, this exactly is the situation.
Yes.
They're just one day and one night, and when we say day, we always refer to as a complete day including night. A day of 24 hours, that's right. So, did this religion meet the challenge, or did it not? If it did not, then you could suspect maybe either God was not fully aware of the things he had himself made, or the person who claimed to be from God was not as much from God as he claimed.
Right.
At least one could say, if he was true, he was only true for a time. When the age would change, then his religion would also come to an end, because his religion does not provide you a system of accommodations for such things as I just mentioned. Now keep this in mind, and then I'll speak of a tradition of the Holy Prophet in which he declared that the time when there will be the rise of Antichrist, in that age, in the earth, the days will be of different sizes. Some days would be 1 month long, some 3 months. I don't know the exact words, but this is the sum total of the message I'm conveying to you. Some, he said, would be as long as a year, and no more. Not 2 years, not 3 years, just 1 year. The companions were absolutely astounded. This was a language which they simply could not understand, and they understood it only in relation to the practice of Islamic teachings. They said, O Prophet of Allah, if we happen to be born in an area of earth where the days, for instance, you say, as long as 1 full year, shall we say 5 prayers only during that period? The answer was no. You will judge your days according to the normal days of man, because teachings are related to normal days. Like you won't stop eating for 3 months or 4 months until the lunch time arrives.
Yes, absolutely.
So, like you shape your daily life and its habits, so also you shape your religious habits in accordance with your normal practices. So the answer is already there. The prophecy is there. So this means that the Prophet belongs to that age. of which he has been delivered a knowledge. And also he delivers the answers to all the problems relating to this age. Right? Anything else? Would you like to ask another question, or you, or maybe you?
No, my colleague wanted to ask something about.
Yes,
Who
is your colleague?
My Barry. Sorry. Barry.
But he's your colleague. Yes.
Yeah. He wanted to know about. He comes from Jewish background.
Right.
And he wanted to know the difference about. We call Mujaddid is coming in every century. He asked me the question. And I was unable to answer him, and I asked him to wait this time, which he forgot. He forgot to wait.
Unable. It's so simple and so rudimentary to the understanding of Ahmadiyyat,
Right.
that I'm shocked to learn that you were unable to answer.
In detail, I did answer him. But I thought it's better to ask him.
According to Islam, as I explained earlier, if you do not subscribe to the truth of earlier prophets and earlier religions, you're not a Muslim. You see, there's again a fantastic thing about Islam, a unique distinction, that while in Judaism and Christianity, to believe in the Holy Prophet is a crime. Really, it is out of decency that you don't discredit him as a true man. But this is the truth. According to these two faiths, the Holy Prophet must be understood as a false man, as a pretender.
Yes.
But according to Islam, anyone who even disbelieves in a single Judaic prophet will be thrown out of the pale of Islam in the sight of Allah. If he does not believe in Jesus Christ and his truth in principle, not as a son of God, but in his truth as a messenger, he would no longer be Muslim. So this belief is included in Islam. Now, in view of this, the Judaic religion is particularly mentioned in the Holy Quran as an example and illustration of how God relates the earlier religions to the comparatively future and later religions. Because there has to be an order in the plan of things. Otherwise, the God would be chaotic. But the Holy Quran speaks of only that line of religion. For instance, in biological terms, speaks only of that tree of evolution on which man was to be born. Does not speak in detail of all others, only mentions them in brief. Like the scientists do not find evidence of the progress and evolution of each species separately. But when it comes to man, of course they go back and trace back the possible stages of his development. So that is why the Holy Quran particularly emphasizes the Jewish religion. Because it says this was an epoch-making period when Jewish religion was made because on this stock was to grow Christianity and later on Islam. And the similarities mentioned are so many. They're amazing. For instance, the Holy Quran relates to a prophecy of Moses that from among your brethren a prophet would come who is not the immediate successor of Moses, or would not come for a long time within his among his successors. It is Istisna, the Deuteronomy 18, verse 18 I'm referring to. It is very clear about the advent of a different prophet from the line of descent of Abraham, which can be referred to as brothers, not from the same line. So we in Islam interpret it as a prophecy that a time would come when the children of Jacob, or Isaac I should say, would cease to represent God ultimately, after they have performed their role in religion, after they have failed to protect the message and keep it pure, despite repeated advents of prophets from Allah to reform them, then according to the Holy Quran, it was destined that Jesus would come. And when Jesus would come, what he would do, he is not a new law-bearing prophet at all according to the Quran. The Quran, the Holy Quran gives full support to the apostles of Jesus who fought a battle with the Pauline superstitions and remained firm on the ground that we belong to the tree of Judaic teachings. We have not deviated from them. We have not added anything to it. It is only the emphasis which is changed. This exactly is the verdict of the Quran. That Messiah came to change the emphasis, not the teachings. And what was the change in emphasis? According to the Holy Quran, according to the teachings of Torah, emphasis was overmuch laid on revenge and hard attitude to your enemies. It gradually hardened the hearts of the Jewish people so much so that they are referred to as stones even in the Bible. Old Testament as well as New Testament, repeatedly, they behaved rather cruelly, over practicing the faith in the areas where it was not meant to be practiced. The Holy Quran gives the example. For instance, the teaching of tooth for tooth and eye for eye, etc. But according to the Holy Quran, there was a little window yet opened in the Old Testament for forgiveness, which was not highlighted because it was the requirement of the time. Moses had come to a people, or a Jewish people, who had long been trampled upon by the despotic rules of the pharaohs. They were so ill-treated and so belittled in every respect, so dishonored, that they ultimately lost the quality of rising for their rights, of confronting an enemy, but emphasizing, all right, if you do it, we're going to do that, tit for tat. They shunned this human moral responsibility in the name of forgiveness. This is no forgiveness. This is a crime. So that is why, for a while, the act of forgiveness was presented as a small thing in a corner. But what was emphasized was revenge. And this they practiced to the full, until their manliness returned to them. And they took the swing on the other side. And when the manliness turned into, in the beginning, to beastliness and then to hardness of stones, of inanimate objects, this was the time when Jesus came to change the emphasis. So he took the swing back all to the other side. He said, no revenge, no more. If you are slapped on one cheek, offer the other one, This was the only answer, because if he had also equally admitted the practice of forgiveness as an equal choice, then a people who are so hardened, they would never take the choice of forgiveness. They would always take the other choice.
Yes, yes.
So temporarily the choice seems to have been withdrawn. And that was not a permanent teaching related to human nature. Human nature required both. That is why in the Bible you can find nowhere prohibition from forgiveness. Forgiveness is mentioned, but as a secondary objective, without significance. So also, when Jesus Christ taught this teaching of forgiveness, we believe that he also spoke of revenge by God. He said God would take your revenge. He would punish these people. And that punishment after death, of course, is not symbolic of total forgiveness at all. It is a reminder that total forgiveness does not exist anywhere. Some punitive measures have to be taken. Some rewards must follow the actions, and so on and so forth. So in this context, the Holy Quran speaks of the advent of the Holy Prophet, who, according to the Holy Quran, brought both these teachings into one single package, and with the right conditions laid upon these things. Now here we come to the modern age, and I come to a question which is agitating the minds of Europeans so much nowadays, or the Westerns generally. Should we accept the penalty of death as a civil behavior or as a brute behavior, a brutal behavior of uncivilized man? Why must we practice hanging or death by other means of criminals who have killed others? So why not behave more civilized and, soften your attitude to the criminals with regards to their punishments? Now, what to forgive and what not to? Where to stop forgiveness and where to begin it? These are the fundamental questions which have to be answered by a book which claims to be universal in time and space. So the Holy Quran speaks of this issue. First of all, it says that if somebody has been transgressed against, it is his right to repay the transgressor exactly in the same coins, but not a jot more than that, which is a very severe condition laid on it, on people, because generally in the in the emotions of revenge, it's very difficult to stop exactly at the line where up to which you had been transgressed. But the Holy Quran says only you are permitted to take revenge if you can afford to do this. No more than the injustice committed against you. Secondly, it says, وَمَنْ أَفَا وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. But whoever forgives, provided that his forgiveness results in reformation, his reward will be with God. It is much better. But the provision is so important. If forgiveness encourages and promotes crime, then according to this perfect teaching, forgiveness is not permitted. If it promotes reformation, then of course you can't withdraw the right of revenge from a small-minded person, but he is informed that God loves those who forgive, provided their forgiveness results in reformation.
Very interesting.
Yes. Now this is exactly the requirement of human nature, which simply no man can improve upon. That is what I meant by the statement that when a teaching is related to human psyche and takes into account all the possible aspects of human behavior, then of course that teaching becomes timeless. It can't be changed. Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Antichrist,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
That is part of the prophecy within the Quran?
Of course.
Is there any time scale when we to expect the real
You see, the
conflagration?
word Antichrist is not found as such in the Holy Quran. But there are verses speaking of the identity of Antichrist and where to find him. But another aspect of the same people who are referred to as Antichrist, which is not religious but material, is clearly mentioned in the same surah. So this means that, like we say somebody is a prophet and somebody is a messenger, they are just two aspects of the same character, same office or function. Similarly, the Holy Quran speaks of two different aspects. In the beginning of the verses, the religious aspect of the Antichrist is mentioned without calling him Antichrist. In the last verses, the material progress of the Antichrist is mentioned, as we find spoken of in the traditions of the Holy Prophet in much more detail. And in between that part, which in fact is not a single person, is mentioned to become so powerful that wave after wave it will conquer the whole earth and would become the supreme rulers of the land of that time. None would be able to defend his cause against such people. When the time comes, then the wall which Allah has created between them and the other people of the world, when that wall is broken by destiny, when the time has come according to God that this wall should be removed, then they will flood the whole world, wave after wave, and become the supreme rulers. That is mentioned in the Holy Quran. So, what is an Antichrist and what is the political aspect of such people? That we can study from the traditions of the Holy Prophet of Islam in such detail that there is no shadow of doubt left at all about the nature of these things. According to the Holy Quran, Antichrist are religious followers of Jesus Christ who have deformed his teaching to a degree that they are no longer recognizable. He stood for unity. He never claimed the right of worship, right to be worshipped. While all you find in the New Testament is that he himself constantly worships God, the Father, as you call it, and admonishes others to do the same. Never has he asked anybody, according to the New Testament, to come and worship and prostrate before him. Not even when Satan demanded it from him. He should have said, no, why should I worship Satan? You should worship me. Not so. So this is, according to the Holy Quran, is the creation of Antichrist. Antichrist in the ideology of Christ, in the message of Christ. The distorted form of Christianity, as would attribute Trinity to the beliefs of Jesus Christ and admonitions of Jesus Christ, and would begin to worship him, and in some parts of Christianity worship his mother as well, and so on. This religious aspect of a people is called anti-Christian behavior. And that is why the overall title is given to such people as Antichrist. But their worldly attitude is described in a completely different way. There they are found to excel every other people in the world. They are described, according to the tradition of the Holy Prophet, like a giant, a huge, gigantic thing, with one eye which is right, totally blind, and the other eye which is left, to be so powerful that it would see things hidden deep under the earth, and it would detect the treasures of the earth wherever they are buried without, digging them up first. There is oil and there is that thing and there is that thing. Now this extreme quality of vision is attributed to the same person who is described by the Holy Prophet as blind in one eye. the other would be so powerful and great, it would see things beyond the capacity of all other men. So other explanations, details of his material character and nature are given in such detail that, again, like I quoted earlier, some examples of prophecy, but pertaining to this age. When I explain to you, you'll be amazed. I mean, you should be rightly amazed. Because, for instance, the Holy Prophet said, this one-eyed giant would be so powerful, so great, that none in the world would be able to stop him or to defeat him. He would conquer the whole world without any challenge. All efforts would fail against him. What would be his mode of travel and conquest? That is described as a donkey, a special donkey which will be provided to him, created specially by God for him. That donkey is described as a fire-eating mode of travel. A fire-eating mode of travel to be described as donkey in that age is so surprising. All donkeys ate fodder. All animals which were used as means of travel and journey were fodder-eating things. But this animal is described specifically as fire-eating. Secondly, it is said that people will travel within his belly. Imagine. And there would be side openings through which they would enter the belly. And instead of being burnt alive in the hell which would be raging within, they would provide comfortable seats, and the inside would be lighted. Now, would that donkey only run on the surface of the earth? No. He would run all right, but he would run so fast that a journey of a month or more would be traveled by him within an hour or so. These are the words of the Holy Prophet. And secondly, he would also be able to swim. And when he swims, he seems to be far greater in size than when he is seen moving about on the surface of the earth. Because when he swims, it is said that he would carry mountains of food aid from the Antichrist to the people who had submitted to his will and practically accepted him as his God. Such nations would be provided food aids. This is literally mentioned in these words by the Holy Prophet. He would carry grains of all sorts, mountains of grains, from the direction of Antichrist to the direction of such people who would submit to his supremacy. But he would not send this aid to such dying, famine people who do not endorse his superiority and his supremacy. So it has to be a huge thing, But this donkey would not walk on the floor of the ocean, he would not sink. Only partly his body would remain submerged, the rest would be above the surface. So that is the second thing which you have already seen fulfilled exactly as he predicted. The third is he would be able to fly. The same donkey would fly above the cloud line, as it is mentioned by the Holy Prophet. And his journey, his hops would be so big that he is described as if he jumps from the east, he would land in the west. His 1 foot would be the east and the second would be in the west, is exactly the description of the Holy Prophet. So when a plane takes off from Cairo, for instance, and lands in New York, or from Karachi and lands in England, this exactly is the prophecy fulfilled repeatedly and repeatedly. So there is more to it. It's an amazing thing to study this prophecy in totality. Partly it is mentioned in this hadith, partly in another. So I am telling you, without giving reference to one single hadith, because in totality we can provide references to all that I am telling you, to be found here or there and there. So it is the collective image of the worldly aspect of the Antichrist, which I have gathered from different traditions. Now, there is no mystery left, at least as to my mind. But the other Muslims do not share this view with us. This is the major difference between us and the other Muslims. They are still expecting the birth of a gigantic donkey which would carry on its back that supergiant as referred to as the Dajjal or Antichrist, and who would eat fire literally, as they say, but would remain an animal, not a machine. So they say, unless that donkey is born, we will not believe in the claimant of Messiahhood from Qadian, that is the founder of the Ahmadiyya community. Because there is so much yet to be done. First a donkey is to be born to carry the Dajjal, so the Dajjal is not there either. They fail to recognize the similarities which I have just mentioned, either in the donkey or a religious people who practically destroyed the message of Jesus Christ by believing in idolatrous beliefs and myths and so on. So this is again a problem with Ahmadiyyat. We are not only confronting the rest of the world in establishing the correct concept of Islam as we understand, with reference to the book and the tradition, not with reference to the medieval Muslim scholars. This is a major parting line between us and them. They stop at the medieval ages and pick out their concept of Islam from an age which was dark, which was predicted to have become dark by the Holy Prophet himself. So all their understandings and myths, their claim, their belief in terrorism and use of weapons for the sake of spreading messages and ideas, all these views and doctrines are rooted in the medieval ages, not at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam. So that is why they disagree with us. They call us kafir, outside the pale of Islam, by believing that the donkey is born.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So what is the next stage then? That if this is the time really of the Antichrist and the Messiah has
then
come.
Messiah should come. Now,
Right.
before his question or your question was in relation to the similarity between the Jewish people and Islam and the significance of their interrelationship. Now, I started talking of that, but then startly went off the way to this diversion which I have just covered. Now I must return back. The Holy Prophet clearly spoke of a time when in Islam we will see 72 deviants exactly as they had taken place among the Jewish people earlier. Septuagint, is practically, literally it's called 70, but it is understood by all people to mean 72. 12 divided by 6, multiplied by 6 is 72. So Hazrat Rasulullah, the founder of Islam, prophesied that as the Jewish people had got divided into 72 sects, so would the Muslims be. And as at the end of that period, the state of morality in the history of Jewish people was in a miserable state, so also the state of immorality in the period in the latter days, when the Muslims would be divided into 72 sects, would be of the same nature and same quality, to such a degree that the Holy Prophet says that whatever crimes the Jewish people of that unfortunate age, when they would have deviated from their original teachings, whatever crimes they committed at that time would be repeated by the Muslims of that period that he is prophesying about. So much so that he says their image would be like the shoe of a pair of shoes is like the other shoe of the same pair. There is no difference whatsoever. So he says, according to him then, that would be the time for the revisit of Christ. Because the recipe for the cure of the Jewish people, according to the Quran, was the attitude which was introduced into Judaism by Jesus Christ. That is why he is not just called a prophet, he is called a Messiah. Messiah is a special office which is distinct over and above the concept of prophet or messenger. No other prophet before him was referred to as a Messiah. He was the Messiah because he came to revive a people. And the word Messiah also has a connotation of revival from death. That is why he showed signs of bringing to life the dead people, not literally we believe. Either they were visions or they were just messages that the Messiah had come to give new life to a dead people. So there are other connotations, but this is returning back to the similarity. According to the Holy Prophet, the similarity of that age of the Muslims would be perfect with the last age of the Jews when Messiah was sent to them. So what would happen? A Messiah must come if the Ummah is to be saved. If the message is not to be changed, then the same recipe which worked so perfectly must be repeated. And this is exactly what we find in his prophecies. Until the Messiah comes, the ills of the Muslim world will not be cured. Then he refers to the same person under two titles. Like I mentioned, sometimes you call somebody representative of God as prophet, sometimes as messenger, give one title or another, the person remains the same. So he refers to the future reformer of Islam who would come to reform the ills of the Muslim world and the rest of the world at the time which is described by him, as I've already explained. He would be entitled Al-Mahdi first and Messiah second. Al-Mahdi in the sense that he would not introduce a new religion, but he would not be guided by his own intellect either. He would be guided by God himself. So Al-Mahdi means the guided one. And Imam means the spiritual leader who is appointed by God. So these are the two attributes of the future reformer which are mentioned in many ahadith. So the Muslim world knows it so well that an Imam Mahdi must come before we are revived. And the second is Messiah, because he would bring new life to the dead and he will rectify the wrongs done to Christ by his so-called followers themselves, by distorting his image. So he would take up the cudgel for the sake of the true Christ and rehabilitate the message of unity back to him and free him, absolve him of all responsibilities of a teaching which virtually and practically is a teaching of idolatry. This is the significance of the prophecy about the Messiah, the Mahdi, and the connection between the Jewish people and the Christian people altogether.
So do I understand you? Is then the Imam Mahdi, the Ahmed is him?
Yes.
Of 106 years ago when he...
That's right, that's right.
Right.
And he is the same Messiah, the same Mahdi, under two titles.
Right.
And he also is the same Krishna or same Buddha who were prophesied in their religions to come during the latter days. Now the logic behind the Ahmadiyya belief is so simple and so inevitable that you can't give it a different turn at all. If the signs of the latter days mentioned in Buddhism, in Zoroastrianism, in Confucianism, etc., and Islam and Christianity and Judaism are the same, then the reformer who is promised could not come from different religions inviting to different ideologies, representing God, the same God. It's impossible. That would be a doldrum of confusion, you know. A Pandora's box of differences would be opened, which would never be able to be shut again. So what we understand from these messages is simply this, that different prophets prophesied they would come in the end of the time, at a certain time. But it is not the name which is of importance. It is just their being from God. So whoever comes from God is the advent of the same prophet.
Absolutely.
Is
Yes.
it? Yes. So it has to be one.
Yes.
Otherwise, instead of establishing unity, he would further split the concept of unity of God, and more powerfully. Because if really they are representative of God, they would come with signs. Previously, their views have no supporting signs. They're just doctrines and beliefs and myths. But if suppose a Krishna comes with all the heavenly signs that he is right and you must worship so many gods and so many devatas and so on, then what excuse would be left for the rest of the world? Except that Prophet Muhammad comes again and says, no, it's the unity, and he also brings some signs in proof of his support. So Moses comes, and so Jesus Christ repeats his visit with heavenly, glorious signs of his descent with the angels and so on. So what would happen to man of that period? He would be totally confused. So such a vision is impossible. No sane man can entertain such scenario. It has to be one reformer representing all these, because they were all true. So if he doesn't come in their name, then he is not true, because they were true people. He comes in their name, but not as split personalities, as a single representation of all these prophets. Now this is specifically mentioned by the Holy Prophet in respect of Jesus Christ's second advent and the advent of the Mahdi. Because in one hadith, which belongs to the 6 most authentic groups of hadith, Sahih Sitta, the name is Ibn Majah. In Ibn Majah, there is a definite declaration by the Holy Prophet, Lal Mahdiyo illa Isa. There will be no Mahdi other than Isa himself. You see? So during in debates, among ourselves, we always point out to this hadith, and the scholars, they're left totally astounded and they're dumbfounded. They can't answer except by finding escape in the flimsy excuse that you cannot prove it to be 100% authentic. There might be some shadow of doubt cast on this or that narrator. In answer, we point out that why was not this question raised by earlier, more honest scholars of Islam? For 1,000 years, this hadith remained in circulation. Why did not a single scholar object that because Christ would be a different person and Mahdi would be a different person, so this hadith has to be wrong? The total absence of such objection raised against this hadith gives us the full support, whether the line of narrators is above censure or not. This is irrelevant. There is a consensus of the opinion of the Muslim scholars that this is what was meant and this is possible. Right?